So it would increase incrementally. So she said that's the blueprint that she wants to take with her to Washington. I wish I had asked this. I thought it in hindsight, like, is $15 enough? You know, is that a high enough minimum wage even? You know, but I am curious to hear about that if I get another opportunity to talk to her about this.
I mean, it would be curious to see the difference between what a living wage is in like Chicago versus, you know, a more rural, you know, city. Because I think in New York, Zohran Mamdani is proposing a $30 an hour minimum wage. And at first that's like, oh my gosh, like when you're here in Minnesota, there are professional positions that pay $30 an hour. But then when you look at the cost of living in New York City, you're like, oh, yeah.
And maybe it's a matter of aiming high so that when you compromise, you meet somewhere that's still livable, you know?
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I wish other folks knew somehow about that strategy. Ooh,
it took me years to figure out in my professional life, you know? So.
Right. We teach people how to do that in your own, you know, negotiations, but somehow at the national level, we have certain people that just don't want to do that, unfortunately. Can you remind me who else has jumped into this race?
Yes. So there is U.S. Rep. Robin Kelly, and I spoke with her last month, and she committed to only confirming federal judges or nominees who are pro-LGBTQ+ and will defend same-sex marriage, and that includes Supreme Court justices.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke with LG, Juliana Stratton. I asked her, would you do the same? And she committed to it as well. And then another person in the race is Raja Krishnamurti, and he also, I haven't spoken with him yet, so I haven't asked about the judges, but I did hear from his office last month, because when the Trump administration was introducing all these cuts to the 988 hotline, defunding the LGBTQ+ option, he wrote a pretty strongly worded letter to RFK basically saying, you need to stop this. Obviously, it happened anyway, you know, so when I do talk to him, I'm going to ask, like, what are the next steps after this letter? Because to some people, a letter is just words.
Oh, but I'm a fan of a strongly worded letter.
Yeah.
I have been practicing those since I was a kid.
And I think in terms of fundraising, Krishnamurti, I think, has raised the most. I'm seeing his ads everywhere. Really? Yeah.
Really? So these are Democratic folks that are fighting for the Democratic nomination. Have any Republicans jumped into the race?
I honestly haven't paid attention to that side. I probably should, but I honestly haven't. But I do know the midterm is March 17th next year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's going to be, I'll be very curious.
And then it's also worth noting that Stratton is not taking any corporate PAC money in this campaign. She said it's going to mean she has to work a little bit harder, but she says it's a worthy sacrifice to show her dedication to the people.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Granted, she has Pritzker behind her. You know, he's very well funded, but yeah.
Personally, he's like a billionaire, so.
Yeah.
But has he come out and endorsed LG?
I just assumed he has. I haven't seen officially. I don't see why he wouldn't, you know. Yeah. They work together, so.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, we will clearly stay tuned to your reporting. Not just, I mean, you're all doing Jake, you're doing some really amazing work on all of these races for both the Senate and for Congress and for local elections as well. So it's, you know, and not just covering the LGBTQ parts of this, you're covering all of these positions that these candidates are taking. So for folks, specifically in WCPT, as you're listening to this, you definitely want to tune into what Windy City Times is doing, because it is some excellent political reporting happening there. You also had a story, and I've got just like another couple of minutes left, and this is a huge story to be talking about. But you had a conversation, or one of your reporters, Andrew Davis, rather, had a conversation with the owners of Savor Artist, and they were specifically talking and processing a mass shooting that happened there. What can you tell us about this reporting?
Yeah, so Artist is a new restaurant and soon-to-be bar. They were in the process of their liquor license application that opened around April. So it's very new, Black and queer owned. And on July 2nd, they were hosting an album release party for a local drill rapper. Her name is Mellow Buck. And unfortunately, it was really tragic. After the party had ended, there was a drive-by shooting, a mass shooting actually, that killed 4 people and injured 14 others. So really traumatic. Wow. And that's what they talked about with Andrew is just the trauma they face. And the alderman, he was calling for the restaurant to be shut down permanently. This venue, the previous business there had a tragic shooting as well. So it's just an unfortunate sight. Yeah. And the alderman was blaming the bar owners. But then they spoke with Andrew, and they also spoke with the publication Block Club Chicago to really defend themselves and say, we're business owners.
Well, we'll have to stay tuned to your reporting. It's an excellent article, folks. I encourage you to do it. Thank you, Jake, for joining us today. We are at time. Thank you, everyone, for listening and or watching today. Up next on WCPT 820 is Choose Views with Richard Chu. On AM 950, it's the Matt McNeil Show. Stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio. And then at 10 p.m. Central, step into the unknown with Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio. And until tomorrow, when we see you back here, keep it queer, America.
Thanks to the Biden-Harris administration's prescription drug law, people with Medicare now have lower costs and more benefits, including a $35 monthly cap on covered insulin, free recommended vaccines, and a brand new $2,000 cap on out-of-pocket drug costs beginning in January. Finally, thanks to the law, Medicare is now negotiating directly with drug companies, resulting in new, lower prices for 10 of the most expensive and most prescribed drugs in Medicare. Learn more at lowerdrugcosts.gov.
Sponsored by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies, because feeling full can sound like this.
How did the interview go?
I did it! I got the job! I can't believe it!
And like this.
Mom, I got first place at the science fair with my volcano project.
That's amazing, sweetie. Congratulations.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished, and everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/act now. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
When facts matter, you turn to WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
A fair balance where the facts come out.
Real news, real talk.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff is set to arrive in Israel today for talks on the war in Gaza. A hospital in the Strip that receives casualties says at least 48 Palestinians were killed while waiting for food Wednesday. It was not immediately clear who opened fire. Meanwhile, Canada and Malta say they'll recognize the state of Palestine in September, joining France and the United Kingdom in stepping up pressure to end the nearly 80-year Israel-Palestine conflict. And AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports Russia has attacked Ukraine's capital with missiles and drones overnight, killing at least 6 people.
Russia fired 300 Shahed and decoy drones and 8 Iskander-K cruise missiles overnight into Thursday, the Ukrainian Air Force says. The large-scale attack targeting the Kyiv, Dnipro, Poltava, Sumy and Mykolaiv regions. Ukrainian Air Forces intercepted and jammed the majority, but 5 missiles and 21 drones struck targets. The Kyiv attack killed a 6-year-old boy and wounded over 50 others. Kyiv City Military Administration head Timur Tukashenko says the casualty numbers are likely to rise. A large part of a 9-story residential building collapsed after it was struck. Rescue teams are at the scene searching for people trapped under the rubble. Meanwhile, Russia's Ministry of Defense says it shot down over 30 Ukrainian drones, again overnight. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The threat of yesterday's tsunami faded after one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded struck off Russia's far east. Tsunami alerts in Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru were removed. The Chilean government kept their alert along most of the coastline, but lifted it in some areas where authorities say there was no longer a risk. Many of these communities along South America's Pacific coast had carried out evacuations and closed their beaches. And investors sent Meta's stock soaring yesterday. The company easily beat Wall Street's expectations for the second quarter. This is AP News. President Trump says the U.S. and India are still negotiating a trade deal. India is expected to face a 25% tariff plus an additional tax because it buys military equipment and oil from Russia. Meanwhile, Trump signed an executive order to impose his threatened 50% tariffs on Brazil, justifying the move as a legal rationale based on Brazil's policies and the criminal prosecution of former President Jair Bolsonaro. Authorities in Arkansas say Andrew James McGann has been charged with murdering a married couple while they were hiking. At a news conference, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders says the state is grieving over the murders of Clinton David Brink and Kristen Amanda Brink.
Nothing like that should ever take place. And for a family to have to go through and deal with that level of tragedy is something that no one should ever experience.
It's audio from KHBS KHOG. I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see areas of smoke at times here for today, with skies becoming mostly sunny and a high in the mid-70s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, partly cloudy and a low near 64. Friday, sunshine, a high around 78 degrees. Then on Saturday, plenty of blue skies and sun, high of 79. Sunday, mostly sunny, high around 81 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 70.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now save up to $800 on select smart beds. Limited time. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Chicago's progressive talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, good Thursday morning, progressives, and welcome to the July 31st, 2025 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is our number. It's our Credo mobile phone and text line. You can find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. Of course, you can email me at richard@wcpt820.com. Follow me on X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, and Substack. And yes, you can follow me as Choose Views. I mean, there you go. There I'll be. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our podcast, our WCPT podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, heartlandsignal.com. There you can get the Choose Views featured interviews, which are pretty good from what I've been told. But good stuff for you guys to check out. There you can also get, of course, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. We want to make sure you are checking those out and, by all means, sharing them with the folks in your world. Busy day today. On today's show, we've got an interview that I did with political strategist and just good political mind, Rachel Bitecofer, will be with us in the 6:30 hour. Dan Summons from Blessings in a Backpack. Dan hasn't been with us in a couple months, but looking forward to having Dan on, and one of his colleagues, Darren Smith. And then the person that we hope is going to take down Lindsey Graham, Dr. Annie Andrews, will be with us because she's going to be talking about running in the South Carolina Senate race. And I am excited about that. We're going to do everything we can from now until then to help her win that seat, because South Carolina deserves much better than they're getting with Lindsey Graham. But for now, progressives, check this out.
I want to take a moment to remember exactly why Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in prison tonight. After a month-long trial, a jury found her guilty of 5 separate counts. Do you remember what they were? Sex trafficking of a minor, sex trafficking conspiracy, conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to transport minors to participate in illegal sex acts, and transporting a minor to participate in illegal sex acts. Prosecutors say those crimes were not a one-off. They spanned a decade, and the victims were as young as 14 years old, and that Maxwell herself identified vulnerable girls who are typically from single-parent, lower-income households. This is the woman who is looking to get her conviction overturned.
Yeah. Now, in her mind, Maxwell's mind, she may think that she should get it overturned. But in the minds of sane people, those of us, it makes no sense at all. And she was convicted of those things. Not in, like somebody just rolled in and said, you got to go. She was convicted by the, quote, standard jury of her peers. Why would you even want to think about pardoning or commuting the sentence of that person? And I saw one guy post this on I think it was Instagram. He said that, and if that doesn't work, to get her her boy Trump off the hot griddle right now, they've been trying to find ways through. The Heritage Foundation has been consulting with the administration on how to find ways to have the Supreme Court step in and overturn her conviction, saying that it was based on some faulty evidence, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so why is that my opening clip this morning? It's because, look, folks, we got to use our common sense. We know that this administration is corrupt. It's we could throw all kinds of words at it. We know that. And I know people say, "Oh, we can't. Let's move on. Let's not talk about this." It's the same thing they say about people who are descendants of enslaved folks. Let's just move on, Richard. Why do we have to talk about slavery? Because it matters. Why do we have to talk about women's rights? Because they matter. LGBTQ rights. Because it matters. That's why we keep talking about it. And this situation with the Epstein files, it matters. It matters because young girls and young women, in some way or another, were taken advantage of. And that's disgusting. And those folks who were part of it have to pay the price for that. Can't have it both ways, Republicans. You all, the GOP at large is largely at fault for why this situation is just continuing to percolate. Because you all don't have the guts to stand on what you say you actually believe in, and that's families and taking care of our young and protecting our children. You don't actually believe that. It is political fodder. It is campaign language. It's a way to make you look good in front of the eyes of the quote-unquote fake A Christian right nationalist. That's all it is. Because if, in fact, because y'all have access to information, you do. You've seen the stuff and all the different comments we've heard. This squarely lands in the lap of the GOP. The Republicans in the House of Representatives should demand full transparency and not this, footsie under the table about grand jury subpoenas and this, that. No. And the U.S. House of the Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives and the Republicans in the Senate should put the brakes on and say, nope, we are going to dig in on this one because if we say we stand on religion and Christian ideology and faith. Sorry about that, guys. And taking care of our children and taking care of our families. If you actually do, then on this one, when it involves your president, you would put the brakes on and say, we aren't getting any other business done until we get this one cleaned up. Because this is about taking care of human beings. But see, it just proves itself that they're taking care of human beings and looking out for the American people is all a bunch of BS. Because look at the ugly, big, beautiful, ugly, whatever, the bill. If you were about taking care of American citizens, then that bill wouldn't have even come to the floor. Not even close, because you would have said that's not right for the American people that we say we believe in. So the hypocrisy of the Republican Party, the GOP, and the voters, y'all not getting a break either. Republican voters, you keep voting for this garbage. You keep repeating the same voting positions and actions, and then you expect things to change, but you won't do the thing that's the easiest thing to do, and that's just vote differently. Down in Texas with this gerrymandering, they're trying to make that about what? It ain't about helping people. It's taking away the rights of people who should be allowed to vote free without any obstructions. But yet you all keep voting in and are too, I'm not going to say stupid, but you certainly are too blinded by your bias and your isms to see that this is going to hurt people. It's only going to help really one person. And that's your, orange savior. So Republicans, you all need to step up, because this which is happening now with this Epstein situation, we're going to keep talking about it. It may not be the top story, the top thing that we cover, but we're going to talk about it, because the GOP is at the center of the reason that this, like so many other things that are wrong right now, they're at the front of they got that first seat when you walk on the bus. And I'm not talking the driver. They're the ones that are keeping this they're giving this air and oxygen. If they really believed in what they say they believe in, then they would shut it down until this gets cleaned up. But we know that the GOP doesn't have the guts or the courage and the honesty and transparency to actually do that. They do not. They're not built that way. And so because of that, we have to hold we have to hold them accountable. I don't want to say the other thing. I was suggested to not use that phrase, and respectfully, I'll do my best to use it. You know which one I'm talking about. We have to hold them accountable. That's part of our job right now, across the board. The GOP candidates that are running in local races, they're not about helping folks. They're about taking things away and hurting people, whether it be a mayoral race, whether it be a county official, whether it be a state legislator. Look at the number of state legislators that have been elected in red states that suddenly, all of a sudden, they get, a treasure trove of pictures of pornographic pictures of children. Look at the number of Republicans in state houses that are doing things to block people from entering meetings. I mean, and just on and on. It's the Republican Party. It's not the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party needs to step up, yes. But the folks that are causing the harm and the carnage is the Republican Party, period. So stop lying to ourselves about it. It's not the Democratic Party. They need work, y'all. Don't get me wrong. But on this day, we have to identify the fact that the GOP is at fault right here. Some say the dam is breaking when it comes to the Epstein question. Some say not. But the Republican Party has the power to make it happen because they're the ones with the numbers. When we come back, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this, bring you some Choose Views news on this July 31st, 2025. And by the way, happy birthday to anybody out there that has a birthday today. You all know who I'm talking about. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back. Hey, progressives, this is Richard Chu, host of Choose Views here on WCPT AM 820, 6 to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. We have some real challenges in front of us as a country. Since the beginning of this show, I have always felt compelled to bring you the best that I've got. Now, there's always a why to doing whatever we do. So, as we go forward and face these challenges, know this, you listeners are my why. Because I want to make sure I do everything I can to provide a safe, open, forward-moving space that allows you to call, email, text, or just listen to a guy that wants to help you bring out your own championship qualities to truly make this place better for us all. Lofty goal, idealistic, maybe so. But that's my why, and I look forward to bringing you the best that I've got. This is Richard Chu. Stay tuned.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Chu's Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
All right, progressives, welcome back to the show. A couple of Chu's Views news items on this July 31st, 2025. The Fed is going to hold rates amid this dissent. They've left the interest rates unchanged yesterday for a fifth straight meeting, as widely forecast, but dissent among its members suggests that the rate cuts could resume soon. The central bank kept its key rate at the relatively high level of 4.25% to 4.5% amid concerns that U.S. tariffs might yet reignite inflation. Two board members, however, voted for a rate cut now, while Fed Chair Jerome Powell said no decisions have been made about the next meeting in September. Investors mostly expect it to yield a rate reduction. The United States sets Brazil, India tariff rates. Yesterday, they imposed a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports after Donald Trump announced plans to impose a 25% tariff on imports from India starting tomorrow. The news comes a day after the U.S. and China concluded 2 days of trade talks without reaching any new agreements. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said negotiations between the two nations would continue. Also, yesterday, the White House said 50% tariffs would apply to imports of self-finished copper products starting on Friday. The GDP grows a little bit more than expected, buoyed by a reduction in the trade deficit for goods. The U.S. economy grew by 3% in the second quarter, beating expectations and reversing the first contraction since 2022. Economists had predicted a 2.3% growth rate, but a steep drop in imports powered a recovery from the first quarter's 0.5 contraction. Net exports accounted for 5 points of GDP after companies had raced to stockpile, if you guys remember, inventory in the first quarter. But consumer spending only rose a modest 1.4% as tariffs caused uncertainty that weakened business spending. And I see more of that coming based on the data that I've been looking at. And last but not least, hiring by firms did bounce back a little bit. Companies hired more employees than expected in July as private payrolls rebounded from a loss in June. Payrolls jumped by 104,000, according to ADP, after falling a revised 23,000, while the pace at which firms are adding employees is the fastest since March earlier this year. It's still below where it stood last year. Biden. Wage growth this month remained stable, with workers who changed jobs receiving an average of 7% increase, and those who stayed seeing a 4.4% gain. The report comes ahead of the U.S. non-farm payrolls numbers that will come out tomorrow, so we'll try to get that to you as well. So there you are in a couple of Choose Views news items on this July 31st, 2025. And as I said, happy birthday to the people who have birthdays today. I have a couple of cousins, one of which you guys know about, and I'll keep it there. And I have another one down in Atlanta today is their date of birth. So happy. Let's see. Making your way over to Heartland Signal, a couple things you want to check out. This is what I was talking about a moment ago in terms of GOP. There is a Ohio State Superintendent Ryan Walters found out that the governor, Kevin Stitt, directed school board members to fabricate a story, apparently, about denying that there were videos of naked women on his TV in his office during a meeting. But here's the thing. It's the GOP, y'all. Either way. Oh, it's under investigation. The superintendent, Ryan Walters, is under investigation for claims of a video of naked women playing in the office. Hey, good story. You guys want to check that out over at Heartland Signal. So our digital platform, our website, go check some stuff out there. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be talking to Tom Moss, member of the Blue Beginning chapter of Indivisible Chicago Alliance and co-host of Show Up Chicago, a monthly political panel show held at the Hideout Inn. Rick Smith, host of the Rick Smith Show, weekdays 7 Central here on WCPT, and Heartland Signal's Rich Eberwine with 3 stories you might have missed from our digital newsroom. So make your way over to Heartland Signal, but also Live, Local, and Progressive. That is Joan Esposito. Tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by guest host Dwayne Kennedy. Sorry about that. Patty will be joined by guest co-host Dwayne Kennedy and their guest, film reviewer Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree Reviews, and Gene Massey, Executive Director of Fair Vote Minnesota. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, the Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And tomorrow is Friday, so our good friend Karen Byrne of True Blue Politics Podcast will be joining us. Natasha Murphy, Director of Health Policy at the Center for American Progress, and Dr. Samir Vora, Director of the Illinois Department of Public Health and General Pediatrician, will be hanging out with us tomorrow. So that's going to be fun. We're kind of calling it our health day in part, but definitely we'll have health experts to chat about some very important items. Remember, you can check out all of our shows and check out our podcast by going to our WCPT site and, of course, clicking on Choose Views. Both our featured interviews and full episodes are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, and Amazon Music. Click on my forehead or my ear, but you can click on that and get more good stuff. Just hit the latest information. U.S. Representative Danny Davis, who's been on our show a few weeks ago, is set to announce he won't run for re-election for Congress. And that means that there's going to be a wide open field for that House seat. And I think this is his 16th, would be his 17th term, or 16th term, I'm sorry, representing the downtown and west side districts of Chicago. So that's going to be an interesting race with him not deciding to run again. We already know that Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton and Representatives Raja Krishnamurthy and Robin Kelly are opting for the seat of retiring U.S. Senator Dick Durbin. So it's going to be busy. That seat, Representative Jan Schakowsky's seat, now Danny Davis's seat. That's we're going to be busy. We're going to be busy, but we've got a great bench of people that are running. And we're going to be here at WCPT. We're going to be having ongoing interviews with the candidates that are running for the federal seats, state seats, and local seats. So we'll be doing the candidate interviews as we talked about. So guys, stay tuned because this is the place to be to get the updates on what's happening in races here in the city of Chicago, the county, the region, the state, but all that are regional, state, and national offices. And we're also going to be talking to candidates that are running in other states and for other federal offices and state offices over the next weeks and months, because we want to be able to bring that to you guys every day as best we can. So just be prepared because there's a lot that's happening, and we know that you guys will want to hear it. Let's see. Oh, right. Yes. Well, we're tight on time. We're going to keep things going because we got to make sure we hit our breaks today. So I'm going to come back to something that I said earlier, and I was a little preachy. What was I preaching about? I was preaching about the GOP. The frustrating part for me is, I have friends and associates that call themselves Republicans, and I ask the question right now. Okay. That's your choice, and I get it. But why would you still be supporting a party that is believing in and just leaning into the things that your party's leaning into? And you can't just say that, on a state level they're doing better, because they're really not. I want to say this again. Republicans, even on a state level, are doing things that take away benefits and services and just good, sound ideas and support tools from people in states where they're the majority of the elected officials. I mean, look at the red states that have Republican state legislatures. They're just doing stuff to harm their people. So it's not just the federal folks in Congress, the GOP in Congress. It's Republicans in state legislatures. They get elected, and the first thing they want to do is start cutting things. First thing they want to do is start hurting people, Henry. Not helping people. And they don't get to lean. This is why this Epstein thing is an issue that we have to pay attention to. They lean on taking care of people, taking care of children, and protecting our children from, the boogeyman of the LGBTQ community and drag queens and all and trans athletes. They lean into that all the time. But when it comes down to cutting the nut on this Epstein thing, where your boy, to the Republicans out there, the GOP and the trolls and all the rest, you have an opportunity to let your legislators know, no, we got to stop the train here and get this fixed. And they won't do it. So they don't get to lean on. When you have Republican friends that talk about, smaller government and all these, their normal bullet points of what makes them a Republican and why they're better as Republicans, at this point, it's all garbage, because if they can't do this basic thing of saying, you know what, as a Republican, I'm calling my member of the House of Representatives and saying, you all need to stop this mess. And it's on them. It really is. They don't get to lean on the things that they say are their standard bearers. Not at this point. And then we got these things popping up of Republicans that are just doing stuff that they say that's always the Democrats. No, it's not. It's not. It's the Republicans. It's just and I want to inspire you guys and give you the okay that it is okay to call out your friends and family if they're still standing on this old messaging. They don't get to stand on that anymore. They don't get to lean into that anymore. No, they just don't. So, guys, we're going to take a quick break. Of course, the number is 773-763-9278. When we get back, we're going to have our interview with Rachel Bitecofer. We'll be right back.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-445-6363. That's 1-800-445-6363. Or go to SelectQuote.com. 1-800-445-6363. That's 1-800-445-6363.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at selectquote.com/commercials.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see areas of smoke at times here for today, with skies becoming mostly sunny and a high in the mid-70s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, partly cloudy and a low near 64. Friday, sunshine, a high around 78 degrees. Then on Saturday, plenty of blue skies and sun, high of 79. Sunday, mostly sunny, high around 81 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 69.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
Well, this morning, guys, we had a chance to have our good friend from the northwest side of the United States of America, and that would be, as I affectionately call her, Doc, Rachel Bitecofer, who is a political analyst, political strategist, political scientist, all rolled into one, is back with us this morning here on Choose Views. Good morning, Rachel, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be back.
Absolutely. Well, the last time that you were on, I gave you another little handle, sort of, and said that based on your toughness and based on your unwillingness to take a bunch of the garbage that's going on right now, I gave you sort of a Chicago South Side handle, and I think you appreciated that. Yes.
Yes, I did. Hello, Chicago, dude. It's the swingingest city in the country for a reason.
Yes, it
right?
is. Yes, it is.
Who would want a Chicago handle? Come on. Dude.
I know. There's nothing wrong with that.
Definitely on the bucket list. Yeah.
True,
actually, I didn't even dream about putting something so great on my bucket list because who would ever think it could happen? You know.
Well, there's a lot happening right now. This week is the build up for the Lollapalooza concert and event, which is a big deal and takes up all of Grant Park in downtown Chicago. You know, they've got to block off some streets. They got to do a bunch of stuff to make it work. But the sound stages are just massive. I mean, I drove by yesterday, and it's all of 7 stories high, some of the 2 of the band stages. So it's a big deal right on the lakefront. And, yeah, it's going to be quite the event. Yeah. So,
and I know that area well enough to picture it. I bet it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'll try to get a couple snapshots and send to you so you can throw in your into your log of pictures. Man, Rachel, you and I have had in the last couple of weeks the opportunity to interview some really interesting folks and talk with some people that have had conversations around them, and they've been ones that have made conversations around others, and that being Joe Walsh. Last week I had Joe on my show last Thursday, and we had a great conversation, and I know that you guys had a chance to talk a couple weeks ago. How did your interview with him go? I saw some of the clips, but how in your mind did it go?
Honestly, I thought it was one of my best interviews of my life. Funny that you should ask that. It was a really good interview. He's very easy to interview, number one. I mean, you and I both interview people for a living. And, not everybody is as good in the interview as Joe. Joe knows how to get that. He knows how to be a media guy. Right. Yeah. I'm doing a Substack live with him tonight, in fact, on his Substack. So I'll tell him you said hi. But, I think the conversation with Joe is so important, right? Because here's a man who started off, he's basically patient zero of the Tea Party movement,
Yep.
And ends up, being a never Trumper and not just recently off that bandwagon, to be clear. He just announced that he's formally becoming a Democrat, which I'm sure you want to talk about. But, he has actually been off the Trump train since the first term. He did vote for Donald Trump in 2016, though. So, So anyway, I find him to be an easy interview.
Yeah, it definitely was, and it was easy for me. I approached it, and I said this to him right out of the gate. I said, we've never talked before. We know about each other, but I said right out of the gate, I'm not going to throw you any gotcha questions, but I'm also not going to take the easy route, because I know that there are people that are listening that want me to ask you a few things. And I actually had solicited some questions from folks about what they wanted me to talk to them about. And I right out of the gate said, so answer this question for me. And that is, what emotionally took place? Not the data and the political move and all that, but what emotionally took place. And his answer surprised a lot of people, but it did sort of allow the conversation to be a real conversation, because he knew I was going to come to that conversation very real and very much about what people felt about him and how he now feels about that, and what was it that emotionally drove him to change. And he said it was shame. And I think that was probably one of the more honest answers that someone could have given in that space. And so it was a great interview. It was a good opportunity. And I'm going to get on his show and have him back on mine. And we talked about, doing some more stuff together to kind of bring this country together, from guys that are two different, positions, or, not polar opposites, but certainly at a time were at different places on the table. Yeah. So it was good. It was really good. So give him a long distance high five when you talk to him later. Because this is America. This is America. Talk to us about This is America with Rachel Bitecofer and Aaron Murphy. Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm so honored to. Yes, dude. This is listen, this is the story behind This is America. I'm taking it. Unlike the audience, likely you've had a chance to check it out. They can check it out at the Cycle-On Substack.com. And it's a podcast. It's quick. It's 30 minutes. I'm always one of those people that think less is more. So it's 30 minutes of dark gallows humor analysis of the news. Not, hey, this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. But, like, what is the collective story of the move to fascism that we're all witnessing happen in real time? And, they're thinking about arresting Barack Obama, okay? So, like, don't clutch your pearls when I say fascism. That is fascist AF, right? It is as fascist as you can get, right? So, anyway, This is America is actually, you're going to love this. It is modeled over a man named William Shirer. Mm-hmm. And in my 5-year odyssey studying World War II and the rise of the Third Reich you run into Shirer pretty quick because he was a foreign correspondent stationed within Nazi Berlin, okay? And he had to report with all those censors. He snuck diaries out at risk of his life and published those. And it's a very famous book about that time period, the rise and the fall of the Third Reich, which everybody who hears my voice should definitely read, because what will happen to you is what happened to me. I read it. This was back in 21 when it was clear Trump was not going to ever go away. I read it and I wanted to feel better. I wanted to be like, okay, the stuff that happened in Nazi Germany, take the Jewish part aside, right? Because obviously we think about World War II and we think about the conclusion, we think about what happened to the Jews, and we should, because it's the most horrible crime that ever happened to humanity. But that was an 11-year administration, right? And so there's 11 years and 8 of them before they enter the war, where you can see how they dismantled democracy and took over these institutions, right? And as soon as I start reading it, I'm like, oh my, okay, they don't have a blatant anti-Semitism posture, though I will argue MAGA at its core is about race, right? And then it's a white nationalist movement being run by white nationalists, so it's definitely about race. It's just not stupid enough to talk about it without dog whistles, right? And, in terms of how democracy got dismantled, I learned a valuable lesson, okay? If you want to destroy a democracy, there's only 2 things you need. You need to be in a position of power where you can do it, and you need a supporting cast that will allow you to do it. Donald Trump has that in the Republican Party quite clearly, okay? And, he's got both things that Hitler had right now.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'd probably, because of where we are with the conversation around white supremacy, I'd probably say that the worst tragedy in humanity, or at least in the time that we study, might be enslavement, given the fact that it lasted as long as it did. The World War II, need to exterminate the Jewish community, Jewish culture was certainly, I'd say it maybe would rival that, but I think enslavement would probably be, maybe rank a little bit higher. Not that we need to rank tragedies, because it's not so much just the numbers, but it's the length of time and the generations that have been more greatly affected from an economic standpoint. I would dare say that the Jewish community in the United States of America has proceeded to move forward and done better off than the African-American first generation of freed enslaved people. So that's kind of how I look at that and go, they both were awful. Not that they need to be ranking, but it's part of why we're here today with this fascist, sexist, and very racist white supremacist movement, is because it's not a movement that's really about anything other than taking people who don't look like you, don't sound like you, don't believe like you, mostly brown-skinned people, and trying to continue to oppress those people, the us's of the world. So, I see it similarly, but I also recognize it's the reason that we're still fighting this fight is because of the length of time that enslavement took place in the United States, if not, greater parts of North America. But you're right.
Well, not to mention how slavery was ended, right? I mean, in England, they ended it by popular sentiment,
right?
50 years before we do through violence, right? So, it isn't just ended. It's ended in this calamitous, civil war that killed more people per people than, any of the major wars with all the high-tech stuff ever did, because we're amassing casualties on both sides in that war. But, as you mentioned, though, right, what I'm working on now, and the new book project that I'm working on is really tracing, like, from, we've been treating history as discrete events, right? There's the founding of the revolution, then there's the founding, and then there's this, and then there's the Civil War, blah, blah, blah. Then there's the Great Depression and the New Deal. And actually, when you look back at it, there's a through line through all of it. And all of it is this limited government, like a cohort, right? Now, that was a regional, not entirely and certainly not now, but it starts off being a regional Southern conservative type cohort, and they were Democrats, right? I mean, that was, before the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act triggered the Dixiecrat Revolution, which triggered the South to go first into two-party competition and then into, dominant Republican power, right? But we're talking about the same conservative ideology the whole time, from the founding to the deal that the devil's bargain that's struck to get the Constitution passed is the 3/5 clause, right? Yep. And, limited government has always meant one thing, dude. It has always meant enslaving minorities, right?
It's always meant it's always meant this. If it didn't mean enslaving a particular group, it meant, without question, it meant straight white men in power. And so when we talk about that, I embrace the racist component and the sexist component. I may not have ever shared with you what I call my four legs of the stool: racism, sexism, Christian nationalism, and white privilege are the four things right now that are causing our democracy to be at a tipping point. We could add things to that, but the thing that I think those are the four things that I believe are the ones that are holding up the stool right now, because that's oppressing women, and frankly, women of all communities. It just so happens that white women who are privileged don't really give a darn about middle class and lower income white women, because if they did, then they wouldn't be pushing for some of the legislation or some of these executive orders that the current administration is fighting for or putting forward. We know about racism. Christian nationalism has taken over the GOP, like you said earlier, because that's who's giving Trump legs and oxygen to continue to do what he's doing. And then white male privilege, or white privilege more broadly in the United States, is allowing all of that to coalesce around, if we're in charge and we take away the things that those people we don't think they should have, then we'll remain in power. So I love how you put that earlier about the GOP has they've allowed this to happen, and it's how Trump is getting away with it, because they have the levers of power. On a national level, if they wanted to stop it, then they would. That's the biggest mistake that people are making right now, and you know this as well as anybody, if not better, is that the guardians of pedophiles are making and allowing all of this happen. They're making it happen by some of the things that they're putting forward in terms of, like, changing the name of the Kennedy Center, from that to changing the name of the Gulf of America. They're putting forward things, but they're also not blocking and stopping things that they could stop. And so the GOP, I love how you put it, they're giving the oxygen to what Trump is getting done. And that you could take, and even the Epstein files, which we definitely have to talk about a little bit before we leave today. But the Epstein files, I mean, you've written a lot. You've had some very regular Rachel sound political strategist comments, and then you've had some snark Rachel too about the Epstein files. So I got to ask you about the snark parts.
Issue.
What's that?
Yeah. I said it's definitely their most vulnerable issue.
Tell everybody why it really is in your observation.
Even though it seems so stupid, right? Like, it does seem stupid. Listen, if you can hear my voice in Chicago, this conversation might seem weird. Like you're like, the sun is shining, it's summer, the Lollapalooza's coming. But I'm here to tell you, your federal government is pure on fire, right? And it's it's burning out of control. Maybe when you get back from summer break, come check it out because it's not good. But yeah, I mean, I guess what I would stress is this: like we have to meet the moment, and this is the perfect segue because you're sitting in Illinois, guys. You're sitting in Illinois, okay? And I don't know if the summer audience knows this, but the Republican Party is currently very concerned because they know they're going to lose control of the House in 2026, okay? And it's not because they're afraid Trump will get investigated or worthless impeachments, because you can't impeach him without Republican votes.
Right.
It's because they know that if they have control in 2028, they cannot certify the Democratic win in 2026. They cannot certify the 2028 election. Can anyone out there looking at this Republican Party ripping off the layers? He tried to overthrow the government. He stole classified info, and then when the FBI asked for it, he hid it from them. Does anyone really think that this Republican Party, which I believe confirmed an actual Nazi to the bench yesterday with no experience,
yep,
to the federal courts, right? That party is not going to certify an election. So control of Congress is critical. And that's why Republicans are planning a sealmander. What they're going to do is in the red states, which are already very gerrymandered, they're trying to take Texas, for example, and get rid of Democratic seats in Texas by redrawing mid-district. And so, you need to Google that I don't want to get too much into the bogs with it, but it's happening. And that means the states like Illinois under Pritzker, California under Newsom, where we haven't tied our own hands with fair map redistricting, because that's classic Democrat, isn't it? Like, we talked all the red states and we banned it in the blue states, dude.
We talked about that yesterday on my show, and specifically we got into what Texas is doing and what Democrats have to do. There's no longer a need for this sort of decorum and fighting a certain way, because the game's going to be over by the time they get their shoes laced up. Just you have to get on the floor barefoot right now, meaning the Democratic governors, to go forward with making the changes in redistricting. And listen, I'm all about let's win this hard right now. So do it in every state that we can do it in, where there's not where our hands are tied. Every single one. Now, let's not. I mean, and this is where the DNC leadership or whomever, whatever, should be saying, listen.
Oh, he is.
Governor,
he is leading it. Yeah.
But to every single governor, Colorado, California, New Mexico. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
We
cannot do it in New York, though, because the good citizens, the good progressive citizens of New York banned it. So I'm in Virginia, and I was in Virginia at the time, and I was, this is stupid. Why are we doing this?
Wow.
They're gerrymandering all the other states. But, it's never until now, and it's still not now, because look at Cory Booker's meltdown, right? It's hard to get Democrats to have a backbone, man. I'm like, listen, guys, they're cheating in the red states. Why are we giving them free seats in this blue state? We should not do this. This is a bad idea. In fact, we have total control. We should gerrymander the heck out of Virginia. And when I said stuff like that in 2018, people just gave me, progressives hated hearing it, right? And that's why I want to make sure your audience knows, if this gerrymander in Illinois happens, we need you to support it. It is going to dilute the percentages of some minority members in Chicago, because they are carrying districts that are 90% Democratic vote right now. And we cannot get more seats without just diluting those districts a bit. And we need you to support that, because if we do not, we are going to not have control of the House. They have a plan for 25 new seats on redistricting. 25.
Yep.
Okay? And like I said, they aren't going to secure the next presidential election. They're not going to certify it if they're in control of that House. So this is an all-or-nothing moment. The only priority that we can prioritize is getting as many seats to offset that gerrymander as they can.
Yeah, because it's not coming, it's here. That's the thing that has to be the message. It's not coming, it's already here. And the fact that Trump reached out to Greg Abbott and said, I need you to find me 5, is just the beginning of what's already here. It's the first, to use a sports analogy, it's the first few minutes of the first quarter, but they're planning on going all 4 quarters and doing this because they know that they don't. At this point, Rachel, it's clear. Donald Trump ran not because he wanted to run the country again. He wanted to stay out of jail. Donald Trump and his minion are in power because people wanted to see how much they could manipulate him to get what they want and what they want to see in place. And that those are we know the household names now, the Musk and the Thiels and the Ellisons and many others that are there doing this work behind the scenes and puppeting him. So we know where this is heading. Because of the fact that they've been so brazen about the fact that they want to put their people in place. Project 2025, we said it was real, that people didn't believe it. Now it's in front of them. So and 50%
of Project 2025 has been implemented. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
50% in the first 6 months.
It is, and this and also let's be honest. This controlling of the House. More broadly, Congress is part of their belief of the unitary executive theory, because it then gives the president, immutable power, at least in my observation of how they wrote it. So this is another piece of that, which goes to show that the folks that are at the Heritage Foundation are really the ones that are running the country, in my crazy observation. So.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yep, by design. I mean, this is something that they launched decades ago, and step by step, investment by investment, billionaire by billionaire, they did it. And now we're on the cusp of collapse into autocracy.
Yeah.
Yay!
And how they really get away with it. We said earlier that the GOP is the tool that's giving them air, and at the same time, it's also everyday folks that. And this is, I'm always careful to not say this in a way that sounds like I'm picking on anybody, because I don't do that, or that I'm necessarily calling anybody out. But American citizens, the 77 million folks that did not vote for Donald Trump, that voted for Kamala Harris, and the other 36% that didn't vote at all, that this is solvable with those folks galvanizing and getting active, not waiting for 2026, not waiting for the midterms, not waiting for anything, but getting involved right now. It is something that we have to talk about and repeat, because I'm not going to be one of the people that said, I wish I had said more. I'm not going to be one of those people. And so I speak to it a lot on my show, and we have listeners to WCPT all over the country, and I make sure that I say it every day on my broadcast that we have to stay in the fight. And we're at this point, we are as responsible as the 15 members of the House and the 47 number, I think I got that right, 47 of the Senate on a federal level. But we're also responsible to make sure that our governors are doing their work to make sure that this happens. And our state legislatures.
Put enough pressure on them. Exactly. And Pritzker, you guys are so lucky to have Pritzker. And California is lucky to have Newsom. They're leading the way with Ken Martin, the new DNC chair. The DNC is leading the fight on trying to convince the other blue states to meet this moment. They're going to steal the House majority. Our only option is to do the same thing and gerrymander them as many states as we possibly can.
And California has a big enough population to be able to do their part, which I believe that Newsom is going to go forward. Illinois does too. We've got enough here. I think that Maryland, did Wes Moore, I can't remember if Wes Moore said he was seriously looking at it as well in Maryland.
He did.
And so, as I said earlier, and speak to this, if we look at the fact that the blue states typically are densely populated states, you're right. There's going to be a little bit of dilution, but if it's going to give us the numbers that we need,
they will still be elected. Yes. I mean, we can either prioritize freedom for everybody, or safety and not having to run for re-election for incumbent. Right. And, I hate to sound harsh, but right now is not a time to prioritize personal ambition. It is time for everyone to prioritize the greater good, or we are not going to make it through this thing.
You get your personal ambition by fighting for the greater good. And part of that has to be that everybody is surviving and moving forward. That's got to be part of our personal ambition, and that's got to be part of our messaging, that everybody gets what they need if everybody fights for everybody else. And, you know, I'm not a script writer or anything of that nature, but I know in my heart that right now that's what it's got to be. Rachel Bitecofer, my gal on the northwest side of the United States of America. It is always a pleasure to have you on Choose Views on WCPT. I want to be on your stuff as well. I know that you and I we've got such a good energy because you're so active and you're so powerful with your voice. And I would be honored to be a guest on your work. So
definitely will have you on. My new show is living. I have 2 podcasts, so please go to the Cycle-On Substack if you like my stuff. You will really enjoy this Substack. It's worth the money. It's putting out content you can't get anywhere else. No one else is putting out this stuff. So
that's true, guys. You got to check her out. I mean, I'm a big follower. This is America. You got to follow her on Substack. Just Google her name, Rachel Bitecofer. That's B-I-T.
I'm the only one.
That's right. Well, okay then. But I'm still going to spell your name. B-I-T-E-C-O-F-E-R. Rachel, it's a pleasure to have you with us again. Let's figure out how we're going to do more of this and keep our listeners and the folks throughout the country motivated to win this thing back. Does that sound good?
It sounds good, homie. We're going to do it.
That's right. All right, listen, have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk soon.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
With MedGuard Alert, you're never alone. You can connect with medical professionals anywhere, anytime. And now MedGuard is introducing our exclusive new Care Watch. If you need help quickly, use it from anywhere to contact medical professionals. No cell phone required. The Care Watch is not only a life-saving medical alert device, it's a revolutionary health monitoring system that checks your blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and much more. And here's the best part. If you have Medicaid, you may qualify to get your Care Watch for free. The Care Watch is only available through MedGuard Alert. Call us right now. We have monitoring programs starting as low as $1 a day. The call is free, activation is free, shipping is free, and no contract is required. Remember, with Medicaid, you may qualify to get your Care Watch for free. Call us to get your Care Watch right now.
800-741-5819. 800-741-5819. 800-741-5819. That's 800-741-5819.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-555-1509. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-555-1509. That's 800-555-1509. For $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-555-1509. 800-555-1509.
Progressive Insurance with insurance for cars, home, boat, motorcycles, RVs, and commercial vehicles at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. On his Truth Social platform, President Trump said it would be hard to make a trade deal with Canada after the country announced it would recognize the state of Palestine in September. Canada and Malta are the latest to join France and the United Kingdom in stepping up pressure to end the nearly 80-year Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Meanwhile, the Senate has rejected a bid to halt sales of some weapons bound for Israel. The AP's Jennifer King has more.
The Senate has rejected a bid from Senator Bernie Sanders to block the sale of U.S. weapons to Israel.
The motion is not agreed to.
The 2 resolutions would have stopped the sale of $675 million in bombs and 20,000 automatic assault rifles. Republican Jim Risch is the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
The need for the military assistance for Israel is the fault of Hamas.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
It is about the United States of America and whether we will continue to be complicit in war crimes and in the destruction of women and children in Gaza.
After hours of debate, all the Republican senators rejected the resolutions, but more Democrats supported them than any of Sanders' previous efforts. The vote indicates growing concern over conditions in Gaza. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, who's voted generally in support of shipments to Israel, supported the resolution.
Gaza is starving and dying because of the policies of Bibi Netanyahu.
The measures would have had to pass both houses of Congress and withstand a presidential veto to become binding. Jennifer King, Washington.
Trump's recent tariff deadline is Friday. The U.S. says it will impose a 25% tariff on goods from India, plus an additional import tax because the country buys oil and military equipment from Russia, enabling Moscow's war in Ukraine. And world shares were mixed today after U.S. stocks slipped. There's doubts on Wall Street about whether the Federal Reserve will deliver cuts to interest rates by September. This is AP News. AP correspondent Ed Donahue reports Kamala Harris is crossing off one possibility for her next job.
Former Vice President and former Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris says she will not run for governor in California next year. In a statement, Harris says she spent time reflecting on this moment in the nation's history. The decision extends a guessing game about her political future that started after losing last year's presidential election to Donald Trump and leaves open the possibility of running for the White House again. Longtime Harris advisor and Democratic strategist Sean Clegg says the former vice president was tempted to run for governor, but decided to explore other options. Among the possibilities she has considered, starting a nonprofit to engage younger voters. Gavin Newsom can't run again for California governor because of term limits. He could possibly enter the 2028 presidential race. I'm Ed Donahue.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see areas of smoke at times here for today, with skies becoming mostly sunny and a high in the mid-70s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, partly cloudy and a low near 64. Friday, sunshine, a high around 78 degrees. Then on Saturday, plenty of blue skies and sun, high of 79. Sunday, mostly sunny, high around 81 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 70.
That's the sound of the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, saving you money and energy. With rebates on Energy Star appliances, so you can come back to a home full of savings. Discover more ways to save at ComEd.com/home savings. ComEd, powering lives.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Really great to have Rachel do that segment with me. And she's one of the leading voices right now and is doing great work, as you heard me say, in this space and making sure that we are on point with holding the right folks accountable for the craziness that is going on. So I'm glad that we were able to have that conversation. Throughout the course of the show, one of the things that I've really tried to be good at, or certainly be mindful of, is the importance of local organizations. And, you know, local organizations tend to be ones that they don't necessarily, get all the support and adulation that they should. But I'm a big believer in them, because when people ask me, Richard, what can I do? How can I get involved? I'm frustrated with where we are. I see a lot of our officials not getting things done and not taking care of the things that are most important, and that's individuals. That's us. We as each other's keeper, as it were. But you guys know that I lean into that, and I'm a big believer in that. And we've been fortunate right here in Chicago to have one of those organizations that has been leading and has been taking care of folks, and that's Blessings in a Backpack, the Chicago chapter. Managing Director Dan Summons has been one of the leaders in the Chicagoland area to make sure that that organization is doing its part to make sure that we take care of our youth, making sure that kids are fed in their community and that weekends are a little bit more inspirational because they've got the blessing in a backpack that they get to take home. We have with us this morning, it's been a couple weeks since we've had Dan on, a couple months in fact, but also one of his colleagues, Darren Smith, and that's Darren with the D-E-R-R-A-N Smith, the Vice President of Commercial Operations and Strategy at the Hyco Companies here in Chicago. Both gentlemen are with us this morning to talk about blessings in a backpack and talk a little bit about some of the strategic things that they've been working on this summer as we are less than a month away to schools being back in session. So good morning to both of you guys. Welcome to Choose Views. Dan, good morning and welcome back. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having us back. We're doing very well. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Darren, welcome to the show. First time meeting you, first time talking with you, but welcome to Choose Views.
Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be on.
Absolutely. Glad to have you guys both on. The last time we talked was right before school ended, Dan, and we had on one of your, I'll call student recipients of the program. But today we've got on a person that's really part of the strategic partnership and work that you are doing with Blessings in a Backpack. So take a quick moment and remind our listeners who and what Blessings in a Backpack is all about. And then let's talk with Darren about the work that he's done in partnership with the organization.
Sure. So thanks for having us on. Blessings in a Backpack feeds children on weekends who depend on school for breakfast and lunch during the week. So on a typical school Friday, here in the Chicago chapter of Blessings, we feed 6,000 kids at 96 different locations. And this summer, we've been continuing to feed kids at Boys and Girls Clubs, summer programs, food pantries, and summer school programs. So we've been busy all summer, and we're really gearing up for the new school year.
That's exciting. You guys must have, I'm sure, been super busy of the last couple of weeks, and I know the next month is going to be running at full speed to get ready for the upcoming school year, I should say. Have you been able to talk to kids this summer, and are they excited about the program? Or I shouldn't say are they excited. How do they feel about the program, and are kids getting excited about getting ready to get back in school? What's been some of your observations, Dan?
Well, I can't guarantee that kids love going back to school and taking tests. That I can't guarantee. But I can tell you, at the end of the school year, we survey our students and ask them how they're doing, what do they like about Blessings. And what they tell us is a couple things. One, 80+% of the kids tell us it's easier to focus in school on Friday afternoons, knowing they're going to be fed. 90% tell us they're going to have a better weekend. That's just a great outcome. I'll tell you one quick story. One of our principals told me we had a new immigrant child from Venezuela here. He's here. He's a second grader. He got his bag of school on Friday, and he looked at the principal, and he said, "This is the best school in the whole world." And I thought, boy, what a great welcome to America. What a great endorsement of Blessings. So, like I said, I can't guarantee kids are thrilled to go back to school, but they certainly enjoy the Blessings program.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'm going to read some statistics to you guys. 78% of kids feel cared for by their community. 71% of kids feel that Blessings is helping their family. 60% of kids have fewer behavioral issues. 60% of children report that their school attendance is better. If you show up, you're going to get something good. And 59% find it easier to learn at school. Dan, talk a little bit about those data points.
Well, it's if you were the third grader, Richard, and you were sitting in a classroom knowing you just had lunch, but you may not eat until you get back to school on Monday morning, you're not going to be. If you had a math test, can you focus on that math test, or are you worried and anxious about what the future holds for you, the uncertainty? Blessings provide certainty for children. We commit to feeding them every Friday of the school year. So they don't have that worry. They can just be a student. They can just be a kid. They can just enjoy their weekends.
Well, it's interesting because, math is hard enough already, but to your point, it's a great example of how the program has been so well received, and you guys do such great work. Darren, tell us a little bit about yourself, sir. Tell us a little bit about your professional work, and then help us understand why you felt and feel the intersection of you and your company with Blessings was important.
Sure. So I am the president of the heavy equipment segment within the Chicago-based Hyco companies. We serve the forestry, railroad, construction, oil and gas, and scrap industries, but basically make big heavy machines. Some of the company names are Barco, Pettibone, Traverse Lift, Ardco, and Kraken Machines, which is fairly new. So I joined the board about 5 years ago. It's one of the things I had been in the community working with Feed My Starving Children and Northern Illinois Food Bank and a number of food charities. But I was approached around Blessings, and the mission really, reached out to me, and was finally at a point in my life where I could contribute at a higher level back to the community, and who can't support feeding kids. So I've been working with Dan now for several years, and I guess asking or your earlier question about setting the strategic direction. So Blessings, it's got lots of arms and legs, lots of volunteers throughout all of the Chicagoland. Couldn't do it without the school-led volunteers that actually distribute the food, the ones that get the food organized, and the nutritionists that we have. But at the highest level, the Chicago chapter, needs to set goals and directions, and so we put together a 3-year strategic plan. We're actually in our 3rd year of that, and set some pretty aggressive goals for fundraising dollars so that we could feed more kids or have more hunger-free weekends, as a statistic that we like to measure, with our national board. And, I'm, proud to say that we have met and exceeded almost all of those goals at this point and are looking to continue to grow. So we can't do that without, all the help that we have in the community. And reaching out to corporations, if there's anybody listening that would like to adopt a local school, that is always very successful because it ties people where they work to their community and helping the kids. So it's not some strange person far away. It's, right there in your community.
And that seems to be, it has a kind of a similar vibe to community policing. And I say that in the sense that when there's local law enforcement in the community that knows the community, the data shows that those communities tend to have not only a better relationship with law enforcement and vice versa, but they also seem to be able to provide the services in a way that are specific to that community. Sort of a similar strategic thought process with Adopt a School. How many of your employees, and I don't know if you can give any exact numbers, but how many of your employees, if you have employees with your organization, with Hyco, are actively involved with Blessings or are looking to be involved with Blessings as volunteers?
So we do packing events at our company, and so it's 20 to 40 at a time, depending on how many boxes or, I guess, bags of food that we're going to pack. That's, one of the things that Dan's team does a great job organizing. If, we raise the funds to buy the food, and then they will deliver it to our company, and then we'll pack it and put it in bags so that it can be distributed. We did one a couple Thursdays ago, and the truck picks it up and takes it right off to a school that was conducting summer school. So that's how people can get really hands-on. And then we have other people that help with some social media or the big fundraising events that we have going, which as we lead into fall, this is when we really need to raise the money so that we can buy the food for the rest of the year. And so we have two major fundraisers. We got a golf and racket classic in September, and then we do a 5K, a do-it-yourself 5K in November. That for a company like HEICO that has many small to medium-sized manufacturing companies that kind of roll up into it that are distributed all around, it's a nice way to build some team bonding, within the company in the local community. So, those are some of the things that we have going.
That's excellent. What about the other partnerships that you're creating with other businesses? How are you, from a strategic standpoint, making some of those things happen and getting some of those businesses that are, trying in the position to adopt the school? How is that going right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is slow going. I mean, part of the board responsibility is networking among the C-suites of local companies. Molex is a big sponsor of ours, and we do have one person on the board there. And then we continue to reach out to others within their networks to finding schools that are in need and finding corporations in those areas and trying to put the two together. It's not a perfect match, but it's certainly a big payoff when it does hit.
So here's a question that I was asked to ask you about the sort of the corporate interaction with the schools. It's really more about the question is really more about students. Do you have, or do you find, or have you found as part of the board that you have students that you interact with that want to know more about the business, more about HEICO, and what opportunities they might find from a career standpoint as they navigate through their years of high school?
Rich, I'm going to answer that one. That's a good. I'm going to go. You know what? That's a really great question. Most of our kids are primary school kids. First through fourth or fifth grade. 90% of the kids are feeding. A lot of them are not ready to think about careers yet. So it's a little bit trick. We also, because we're very conscious of the kids' confidentiality, we often the kids are not identified in school. Matter of fact, we ask our in-school volunteers to, when the kids are out at recess or out at lunch, that's the time to put the food in their backpack to take home on Friday. So they're not identified in any way. So it puts our volunteers in a position where we really want to make sure the kids, we don't want anybody to feel ostracized or, criticized for receiving free food because their parents qualify them for free breakfast and lunch. So our options for those kind of interactions are kind of limited.
Well, that makes sense. I understand that, and you've talked about that before, Dan, in terms of confidentiality, and that's obviously one of the other parts of the success of the program is making sure that the children that are part of it don't feel ostracized or don't feel, I guess you could say, separated from the other kids that are in the program. With the upcoming school season, I would say school year. Have you any new numbers in terms of the schools that you're going to be servicing and the students that you're going to be servicing?
So we've got our 96 locations in the Chicago chapter. We don't anticipate that going up. We do anticipate an increased demand, and our fundraising, if we hit our goals, we're going to have a nice increase in the number of children fed using the same number of locations. So we're kind of looking forward to that. But some of that is dependent on our ability. Darren mentioned, fall is fundraising, special event season. And if we have a great golf and racket classic, that really puts us in a position to feed more kids, because we take the first $100,000 we make at the golf and racket classic and give that directly to our programs. Our board members, like Darren, we sit down in a meeting, we go through the needs, and we give that money away. So it's the most impactful thing we can do all year long.
Wow! And as you get, so then there's the you said it's a 5K. Do I have that correct?
So we have a do-it-yourself 5K, yeah, and that's the first 2 weekends in November. That kicks off, actually, the advertising for that is going to kick off tomorrow, so keep your eye open for that. And this is an opportunity for groups like HICO, companies, family groups, school groups, to do a 5K. It's your own pace. It's your own place. It's the world's greatest 5K, Richard. You don't have to train for it. You don't have to get up and go down lakefront and stand in line with a bunch of other people. You can get together in your own neighborhood, your backyard, your school, your church, and gather your own team and do the 5K in the way you do it. Personally, I do it walking from my fridge to my couch back and forth all weekend.
Darren, what about you? How do you navigate your 5 kilometers?
So we actually do a couple ones. So within the HICO companies, we do meet at a local forest preserve out in the Naperville area. And, some guys take it pretty seriously, but most people end up walking it. And then, some of our subsidiaries, not even in Chicago, all over the Midwest and even out west, put together teams for themselves. And so, we put a collage together of selfies, if you do it single or if you're in a group, and then we mash those together and we put a little event together at work so that, people can see what other people are doing and just out having fun outside of work.
That's fantastic. We're always going to have that person or persons who take it really seriously, and they hear the event and then they've got to get themselves really wound up for it and be prepared.
So true. I mean, they had their they were with their pictures, they're sending in their times, and I'm like, we don't really care about the times, guys. And pictures of people doing it on a treadmill. I've had pictures come in on the golf course. They're walking their 3.1 miles on the golf course. However you want to do it is perfect.
That's great. That's great. So listen, guys, as we kind of wrap up, and it's always great to have you on, Dan, and one of your guests, whether it be a student or it be a volunteer, or it be one of your partners through the board. It's always great to have on people that are doing things to help in the local community, and we know that Blessings is part of a national footprint. And just remind our audience again of the numbers throughout the country, but also the phrase that just has stayed with me in terms of no zip code in the country is without a food disparity. Talk a little bit about that as we wrap up, and then I'll let you guys let everybody know how they can find you.
Sure. So Blessings nationally, we're in 44 different states in the District of Columbia. And a typical school Friday, we're feeding 90,000 kids. That's almost 3 million hunger-free, smile-filled weekends. 3 million times the kid's going to go home knowing that they're going to have something to eat to sustain them over the weekend, so they can come back refueled and refreshed to school on Monday morning. That's the big number. Here in Chicago, it's over 200,000 hunger-free weekends. We're really proud of that. And to get a hold of us, I encourage you to go to chicago.blessingsinthebackpack.org. And if you want to learn about the Golf and Racket Classic or the DIY, it's /upcoming events. And both those registration pages are live right now.
Fantastic. Darren, any last comments on the program and your thoughts about how you keep moving things forward?
Well, I've been honored to be part of this group, and Dan will often say, we're one of the best kept secrets in Chicago, or worst kept secrets, because while we impact so many lives, a lot of people are not even aware of the charity. So I'm glad to get some more exposure here on a local radio, and encourage others to reach out and help in any kind of way. At the school level, at a packing event, just a donation, one of the fundraisers, or just encouraging kids to stay in school and see the bigger picture towards the end of the year. As the elementary school, it's a lot different than when you get into junior high and high school.
Yeah, good point. Dan Summons, Managing Director of the Chicago chapter of Blessings in a Backpack, and Darren Smith, President of HICO Companies, two of our local leaders that are just doing the work to make sure that our children in the community are taken care of and that they go home on the weekends with a good attitude, a good feel, and a good full belly, hopefully. So, guys, thanks for being with us this morning. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us on the show.
Great, Richard. Thanks for having us back.
My pleasure, Greg, to have you guys with us. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.
All right, bye now.
Thank you.
Now. All right, guys. Two just super dudes that are doing great work. A local organization. You can get involved. You know my stance on getting involved with local organizations. And if you're somewhere else in the country, you heard Dan say in 44 states in the District of Columbia. So just you can Google the local chapter, and then from there they can direct you to one in your state if you want to get involved with the programs that they have and are making available for children. Really great program. So glad to have them with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back after the break, we'll be talking with the lady that I'm hoping is going to take down Lindsey Graham. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
This is a WCPT 820 Heartland Signal News Minute.
So what they're trying to do is make it not work.
That's Illinois Congressman Eric Sorensen, a meteorologist, speaking to WCPT's Patty Vasquez about recently enacted budget cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and National Weather Service. Like all House and Senate Democrats, Sorensen voted against the cuts.
I think it's a great place for Democrats to be because now we can say, no, we're going to put America first. We want America to innovate and lead when it comes to science.
Speaking about Republican cuts to Medicaid and food assistance, Sorensen added,
we have to show the country what Democrats are for. We want to make sure we're connecting people, especially vulnerable groups, to health care. We want to make sure that kids are not going to sleep tonight without having a meal in their bellies today.
For WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal, I'm Andy Miles.
This is Tony Moray. I'm an estate planning lawyer who drafts living trusts and wills. Since the election, I've been hearing from my clients, many of them fellow WCPT listeners. And we all wonder, how did this happen and what can we do? The how is, of course, very complicated. My thoughts as regard to what we can do is simple but important. We need to take extra care of those we love. Having an estate plan using either a living trust or will can provide comfort in uncertain times like these. When the progressive values we hold dear are under attack, I feel we must make sure that our personal lives are secure and then work out from there. I've been drafting estate plans for my clients for over 30 years, and I will use all of that experience to help you. Please call me at 847-996-0496. My website is moreylawoffice.com. That's Morey spelled M-O-R-E-E. Again, the phone is 847-996-0496. There is no cost or obligation for our initial discussion. I look forward to speaking with you.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see areas of smoke at times here for today, with skies becoming mostly sunny and a high in the mid-70s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, partly cloudy and a low near 64. Friday, sunshine, high around 78 degrees. Then on Saturday, plenty of blue skies and sun, high of 79. Sunday, mostly sunny, high around 81 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 70.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
It's Choose View with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose View, 773-763-9278. For 60 years, Medicare and Medicaid have helped South Carolinians get the care they need, whether they're aging, disabled, or raising a child on a tight budget. But Lindsey Graham and Republicans want to slash funding and rip away coverage from those who need it most. Cuts to these programs mean closed rural hospitals, longer wait times, and fewer doctors, especially in communities already struggling to get care. As your senator, she'll fight to protect and expand Medicare and Medicaid because your health should never depend on your zip code or your income. That is a quote, and I changed one word. She'll do this, and that is Dr. Annie Andrews, who is running for the Senate seat against Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. Good morning, Dr. Andrews, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. We're glad you're here, too. I said to Henry, I'm so excited to talk with her. So I am very excited to chat with you this morning. Take a moment, if you would, Dr. Andrews, and just let folks just kind of give your quick bio, who you are, your background, and a little bit about why you're running, and then we'll get into some questions that are a little bit more specific. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I am Dr. Annie Andrews. I'm a mom of 3 and a pediatrician. I've worked for the past 20 years in children's hospitals taking care of sick and injured children. Love being a pediatrician, but when you go to work every day in a children's hospital, you can't help but notice all of the systemic barriers that our children and their families are facing. When I work in a children's hospital, nearly every day I care for children who are hungry and don't know where their next meal is coming from, kids who come in the throes of a mental health crisis and they can't access mental health resources, kids with chronic diseases like asthma and diabetes and their parents aren't sure if they can afford their prescription drugs, kids who spend the night in the hospital room alone because their parents are juggling multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and kids who have been shot. So I am a problem solver by nature. When I started to notice that my children I was caring for in the hospital were being impacted by broken policies coming out of Washington, D.C., I looked to Columbia, South Carolina. I looked to Washington, D.C. to find leaders who were fighting for our kids, and I didn't find enough of them. So I dove headfirst into politics back in the 2022 election cycle. I ran against Nancy Mace. I did not win that race, but I did not go away. I've been fighting for kids and families in South Carolina every day since. And about 2 months ago, I launched my campaign for the U.S. Senate against Lindsey Graham.
And thank God for Dr. Annie Andrews for the work that you do as a pediatrician and all the work that you do in terms of taking care of our children. Before you came on, I had a gentleman on from Blessings in a Backpack about making sure the children are fed and on weekends, and it's a wonderful program, and we've been blessed to have them on as guests on our show. I'm a big believer, Dr. Andrews, of that local impact, and then that local impact broadens and it becomes part of our national conversation, and you are a part of that right now in terms of you're running for this seat. And there's so much to talk to you about, so we're going to have you back on. So I'm going to try to squeeze everything in today. I won't do that to you because I know that there's so much to cover. But let's talk about the race. Let's talk about your why. And I remember when you ran against Nancy Mace, and I was disappointed that you did not win that race. I won't say you lost, and you just didn't win. But you stayed in the fight. You haven't gone away, to use your own words. What is it this is the question that I get asked a lot, and then I end up asking folks who are in certain communities this question. Why are the South Carolinians still voting for the same people that are not doing anything to necessarily help them? You hear Nancy Mace's voice, you hear Nancy Mace's name, you see her on television, social media, and it's never really about helping the folks that voted for her. It's all about this sort of caustic conversation and hateful rhetoric. Lindsey Graham used to be kind of a dude that you could say, okay, at least he's a center-ish Republican, but he's gone to the dark side. Why do folks in South Carolina keep voting these folks in office?
There's a lot of systemic reasons why that continues to happen. I mean, we're in the deep South here. There's a lot of underlying systemic racism. You can also walk into the voting booth in South Carolina and just press the button for Republicans and do, single ticket voting. And that really makes it difficult for folks to consider crossing the aisle. We also are suffering from gerrymandering, where we have a state legislature that is becoming more and more extreme because of the way that these districts are drawn. And my job over the next 15 months is to talk to everyone in South Carolina, Republican or Democrat, and talk to them about what I will do for them. Folks out there are so tired of the divisiveness and the vote for me because I'm not Lindsey Graham, vote for me because I'm not Donald Trump. People need to be told what I will do for them, what I will fight for, so that they feel compelled to take the time to go to the voting booth. But the fact of the matter is, Lindsey Graham has been in the U.S. Senate for 22 years, which is half of my lifetime. And in that time, as you said, he has devolved from a relatively respectable member of the Senate who was willing to work across the aisle to someone who is up there to serve one and only man, and that man is Donald Trump. All Lindsey Graham cares about is what will keep him in Donald Trump's good graces, what will keep his billionaire donors happy, his corporate donors, and what will help him get reelected. He has left South Carolina behind. And as a result, you see a state down here that has been ruled by Republicans for decades, and we're on the bottom of nearly every ranking list, whether it's infant mortality, maternal mortality, infrastructure, quality of public education, folks living in poverty, food security, whatever. We are not doing well. And so it's time for folks to consider voting in a different way. And that is the vision that I'm going to be delivering to voters across the state over the next 15 months.
And thank you for that, Dr. Andrews. When I come to South Carolina, and admittedly, it's a beautiful, topographically beautiful state, and I enjoy my time down there, with family down there, friends and such. And they speak to what you just spoke of, that the disparity between those with means and those without is just stark. And that the local politicians as well as the national politicians aren't really doing anything to change that. They themselves, even some of your local politicians, state legislature people, they're only concerned about taking care of the people who have a check to write to their next campaign, and rather than the people who need the money through the election process of having better leaders. So I think you've tapped into something there that hopefully is sustainable. I want to compliment you on something you said, and then you can talk about whatever you need to talk about. You mentioned something that a good friend and colleague and family member here in Chicago and I talk about all the time, and that is we have to get past just the hate, and here's why we don't like the Republicans. And we all are susceptible to doing this. I know that I've done it, and I still do it. At the same time, giving voters something to vote for. And one of my simple messages has been to do both, to talk about how that's awful, and here's what we're going to do and why it's going to benefit you and your family. Talk about that a little bit in terms of how you want that to be more of the messaging for Democrats at large.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we can do both. We need fighters. We need people who won't pull punches, and I certainly won't. I was talking to a voter the other day, and he said, gosh, Lindsey Graham is such a scumbag. Don't you wish you could call him that? And I was like, sir, have you seen me on social media? I will certainly call Lindsey Graham a scumbag.
Yes, you have. I'm sorry to laugh over you, Dr. Andrews, but yes, you have.
Okay. So we can do that, and we must do that, but we must also, get back to the Obama era where we talked about hope and we talked about what was possible in this country, what's possible in South Carolina. So, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. I can do these two things at the same time, and that is my plan. And, for me, healthcare is going to rise to the top as the most important issue in this election cycle. And here I sit, a pediatrician who's worked in hospital systems for my entire career. And I can talk about this issue in my sleep because it is what I have lived and breathed for my entire professional career. And my job is to not only point out what this horrific budget bill will do to our state's healthcare system, this bill that Lindsey Graham not only voted yes on, but essentially wrote and championed in the U.S. Senate. This is going to devastate our nation's Medicaid program and South Carolina's Medicaid program. And Medicaid is the largest insurer for children in South Carolina and across the country. It also funds nearly 50% of the births in South Carolina and 6 out of 10 nursing home beds. And you can't take that much money out of a system and expect the system to continue to function well. This is going to impact not only folks who are on the Medicaid program, who are barely making ends meet as they are, but it's going to affect those of us who have commercial insurance, because hospitals are making hiring decisions based on this looming budget hole they see in the years to come because of this horrific bill that the Republicans passed and that Donald Trump signed into law. So a hospital that maybe was going to hire 10 new nurses for the emergency department is only going to be able to hire 2. They were going to hire 5 respiratory therapists. Now they're going to hire 1. So that means when you get sick or injured and you show up in the emergency department, those departments are going to be overcrowded. And when you take healthcare insurance away from folks, like this bill will do to nearly 250,000 South Carolinians, that doesn't mean that people don't get sick and injured. They still get sick and injured, but what they're going to do is they're going to stay home because they have nowhere to seek care. Then they're going to get sicker. They're eventually going to show up at the one place that is legally obligated to provide them care, which is the emergency department. Those emergency departments are already going to be understaffed, and now they're going to be overcrowded with patients who are sicker than they needed to be. Hospitals will provide that care, but they're going to have to find a way to make their budget work. So they're going to start raising what they charge our commercial insurance companies, and that's going to raise our premiums. So this is a devastating blow to our healthcare system, but what we need to do is talk about how we could build back a better healthcare system for Americans that increases the number of Americans who have access to quality, affordable health care, because I believe health care is a human right. And that's just one example of the way that we need to talk about the bad that's being done, but what we can do to build back better.
And I think that, and I love how you obviously broken this down, and I think that this additional pressure that's going to be put on the system, I have to believe that Republicans know that that's the case. And so they don't get we shouldn't give them any cover any longer. And I spoke about this at the earlier part of my show this morning, how we can't give the Republicans on any level, not just a federal level, but on a state level in terms of legislatures, any more cover, because they can't be that stupid. If they are, then they need to go anyhow. But if they are not that stupid and they know what's going on, then they're intentionally causing harm or not getting in the way to prevent harm to everyday folks. And that to me is a part where I agree with you about, calling them names is not un-okay any longer. We get to do that because they're indirectly calling us names by the policies that they're passing, that they're putting forward, and that they're signing off on. And I applaud you for being able to walk and chew gum, or choosing to. What went through my mind, Dr. Andrews, is you're fully capable of walking and chewing gum. If you work in an emergency department or in a hospital, you're fully capable of the phrase of multitasking your way around these issues. So it's great to hear someone with your passion and your energy, but also the grasp of the issues and who it's going to help, who will be helped by good, sound policies that you want to advocate for. Are you at all, how do I want to put this without sounding silly? Lindsey Graham's got a bunch of money and a war chest that's pretty sizable. And we know that one of the things that has allowed bad politicians to stay in office is the money that they have to just, carpet bomb advertising when it comes to their races. And that's something that he has. I don't want to say are you intimidated, but what are your thoughts about that? How are you sort of navigating your way around that?
I spent 12 months of my life running against Nancy Mace, who I fully believe is our nation's most embarrassing congresswoman. And during those 12 months, she called me a child abuser because as a pediatrician, I support gender affirming care, because to me what gender affirming care is essentially being kind to children who are struggling. Mm-hmm. And so that race got really ugly, and I survived. I got beaten down, but I survived, and I came out the other side much stronger. And as we've already talked about, I haven't stopped since. But Lindsey Graham is a different beast. Nancy's nasty, but Lindsey is, he's powerful. He is deeply entrenched in Washington, D.C. That doesn't mean he deserves to keep his job. And for whatever reason, sometime after 2016, I just woke up with the audacity to do these things, as scary as they may seem, as, dangerous as they may become. I am in this fight for my kids and the 73 million children in this country. And I'm putting myself in this position, which is incredibly personally and professionally risky, because I believe so deeply in what I am fighting for. And I know that our country can do better. I know that South Carolina can do better. But you're right. I'm up against, a very powerful politician who does have a lot of money in the bank, which is why I got in this race 18 months before the general election. So I have the time it takes to raise the resources to run the kind of race I need to run to defeat Lindsey Graham. And he is vulnerable. His approval rating in South Carolina is is 34% right now. If I ever got 34% on a class in medical school, I wouldn't be a doctor. So he should not be a U.S. Senator. And this is a midterm election year. Donald Trump is not on the ballot to bail Lindsey out. And, back in 2020, when Jamie Harrison ran against Lindsey Graham, it was COVID. We couldn't knock doors. You can't win an election in a state like South Carolina as a Democrat if you can't knock doors. And we are not hamstrung by that this time. So he's never been more vulnerable. He has 3 primary challengers, including the architect of Project 2025, just got in the race yesterday. So even folks on the right see him as weak and disposable. And so I'm here to do the hard work, to take advantage of that and send shockwaves through the American political system when I defeat him in November 2026.
I love that you're not afraid to use words that shockwave is a powerful word. That's a word that gets people's attention. I like that in how you speak, Dr. Andrews, because that's what I think a lot of people want to hear, and they want to know that Democrats are willing. I use this phrase a lot: walk in the room and knock over some doggone tables, and I'm getting that feeling from you that's a little bit of how you're built, and that's so exciting and inspiring to hear. You've got some allies. I mean, let's talk about some of the people that have raised their hand and said, you know what, I want to get behind the work that she's doing. She didn't go away after not winning the race against Nancy Mace. And so you've got some allies in the Democratic Party there in South Carolina. And I know that one of the big names, you've got some big names. So let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. I was proud to earn the endorsement of my friend Jamie Harrison on day one of this campaign. I really respect the race that he ran back in 2020. And we already talked about why that was such a difficult year, but this is everything. The stars are aligning to knock Lindsey Graham out, and to have Jamie's support means a lot to me. I'm also really proud to have the support of the organization called 314, which is a national organization whose sole goal is to elect more folks up and down the ballot with a STEM background, and they're specifically focused on sending more doctors to Congress, and they're incredibly helpful behind the scenes in my campaign. And then also the organization Vote Mama, whose goal is to elect more pro-choice Democratic women up and down the ballot, and they've had my back since my last race. I'm so proud to have their support as well. So I'm building the coalition locally and nationally that I need to build to win this race, to put myself in a position to be the most effective candidate to take Lindsey out.
That is great to hear. I had an opportunity to meet Jamie Harrison last summer during the DNC week, which was just phenomenal, and he was a great dude to talk with. And we talked a couple of times since the convention, and it's good that you've got some of that those local voices, but that are also part of national organizations working with you. We are talking with Dr. Annie Andrews for Senate. She is running against Lindsey Graham. She made it clear early on she's jumping in the race now. She's not waiting to the last minute. She's fighting. She believes in what has to be done to change in Washington, and it starts with what happens for South Carolinians. There are other folks that are jumping into different races throughout the country, and I think that your strategy of getting started now is so incredibly important to win some of these seats. But you said something earlier that I can't leave without us chatting a little bit about, and that's the impact of gerrymandering. We just saw that Trump said that, he reached out to Greg Abbott and said, I need 5 seats. Sounds kind of like he, is a little bit concerned. But how are you dealing with, not so much how are you going to deal with that, but how do you think we as Democrats have to deal with this intentional gerrymandering in certain states?
I mean, gerrymandering is really at the root of what is, leading to the downfall of American democracy. We have to root out corruption, and that includes ending partisan gerrymandering. I mean, my congressional race was during a redistricting year, and the South Carolina state legislature, which is a majority Republican legislature, they changed my district that I was running in from an R+2 to 3 to an R+14, handing a victory to Nancy Mace. So I lived up close what the impacts of gerrymandering are. And as you can see, since that district was redrawn that Nancy represents, she's become more and more extreme because all she has to worry about is winning her primary because of the way that they have drawn that district. So gerrymandering truly is at the root of what's broken in our democracy. Add to that the corporate dark money that we see fueling elections these days, and also, we need to ban members of Congress from trading stock. We need term limits. We need to end Citizens United, and we need to end partisan gerrymandering. And if we could somehow manage to do those 4 things, we would immediately have a much healthier, more resilient democracy. But these are not easy problems to solve. We see what Texas is up to, under the direction of Donald Trump. We see what Gavin Newsom is saying in response to that. And, my gut response is we have to play this game to win.
Yep.
Because if, we hold ourselves to a higher standard because of who we are, because most of the time Democrats are driven by like a deep set of personal values, a moral compass, a North Star. And so we find ourselves losing and losing and losing because on the other side of the aisle, they don't have those. They're not handicapped by a moral compass or like tied to a set of internal values. So they're just in it to win it. So we have to, we have to take the gloves off. We have to play dirty, and we have to start winning elections so that we can build back a stronger, more resilient democracy.
Wow. That is a powerful, powerful statement. And I know you believe it. And that's one of the reasons that I say so often, we got to stop using a ball peen hammer and start bringing a sledgehammer to this fight. And that's the way that we as Democrats are going to win. And yeah, we got to play this game a lot differently. And the thing about it, I think, and you know better, it's really not that hard to do that because what's at stake is so incredibly important. And so I'm encouraging more Democrats to when I've had some of our U.S. representatives on the show, I've said, we've got your back. You don't need to turn around and wonder if we're there. We got your back. Now go get it done. And I've been pushing them to realize, don't worry about what we're going to say. Just go get it done. And if you got to knock some heads around, not literally, nobody take that the wrong way, but if you got to get some people's attention and you got to call people a scumbag, or you got to call people what they are, caustic and other things that Nancy Mace has become, then do it. Because there's a lot of people that want to hear you say it. And am I crazy in saying that, Dr. Andrews?
No, I couldn't agree more. As a bystander in the months between Donald Trump winning in November and me deciding to run against Lindsey, that's all I felt. I was just desperate to see Democrats fighting in a different way. And we see individual examples of this. And, I think we're finally starting to find our footing. But this is not the same game of 10 years ago and 20 years ago. We have to recognize that we find ourselves in an incredibly urgent moment. And if we don't shift our tactics, if we don't give the microphone to new leaders, emerging leaders who are willing to fight a different way. If we don't have elected officials who are willing to risk everything for this fight, because your career in politics is not more important than American democracy. And I think we have so many people who just, their entire identity is tied to the fact that they are an elected official. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to make noise. And that's not going to cut it because, like you said, we've got your back. We want to see fighters. We will reward fighters. But we just have to start trying new things. We have to start handing the mic, as I said, to new leaders who are willing to fight this fight with the urgency that it requires.
It does. And I appreciate you saying that again and being one that I get the feeling that you feel that to your core right now. And that's so inspiring to hear. Dr. Andrews, I want to sort of make my reservation with you now to have you back on the show. I want to be an advocate for your race. What can folks do? How can folks find you? I've already gotten, believe it or not, I've already gotten text messages from people that have said they've signed up to get your material, to follow you and so forth. So take a moment and let folks know how they can find you, how they can get involved and be a part of us turning that seat to a Democrat, specifically Dr. Annie Andrews.
It's going to take all of us, and you don't have to be from South Carolina to get involved in this race against one of the most career corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C. So you can go to drAnnieAndrews.com to donate, to sign up to volunteer. You can text bank, phone bank from anywhere. We're going to need an army of volunteers to counter all of the dark money that Lindsey Graham is going to have in his bank account. We have had a lot of success in fundraising in these early days of the campaign. I'm incredibly proud that in the first 4 weeks of this campaign, I raised $1.2 million. And that shows the strength of my campaign, of the team that I've built, and the desire across the country to send folks like Lindsey Graham home. So every dollar counts. If you can send me $5, if you can send me $500, please just get on board, support this campaign. I promise you that no one is going to fight harder to defeat Lindsey Graham. And if I'm given the privilege to serve in the U.S. Senate, I will work every day on behalf of America's children and families, and I will not embarrass my constituents, and I will not let you down.
Dr. Annie Andrews, and that's Annie spelled A-N-N-I-E, just so that everybody knows. Get it right, Andrews, running for Senate in the state of South Carolina. We are so proud and honored to have had you on our show this morning. We will have you back. I put my reservation in already so that you know we're going to have you back again and keep supporting you in this effort to win this seat. So thank you so much. Stay safe, and we got your back, okay?
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to coming back.
All right, be well. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, you know what we do. We do our work. So let's get behind Dr. Andrews. Lindsey Graham has been a failure as a senator, irrespective of what party. If he were a Democrat acting like this, he would be a failure. So he's been a failure as a senator. The people in South Carolina deserve better. The people in the region deserve better, and the country does. And that's a number that if we were to get that seat, we get to change some stuff, y'all. And you know how I feel about that. So I'm asking you guys, and I'm going to continue to ask, when we have a person that stands up and raises their hand and says, I'm going to get involved, like Dr. Andrews is, then we don't have any reason other than just excuses. We have no reason to not get behind her. You ask for people to step. This is the thing, Henry. I hear a lot of people running around saying, oh, when are the Democrats going to have the young voices and the energetic voices and all that stuff? Well, there's one right there. If y'all can't get behind that, then that's what I meant when I said, and don't take this the wrong way, when I said it's on us if we don't get behind the people that step up, that's what I mean. Because she stepped up. She made it clear. She's unapologetic. She will probably bring a sledgehammer to the next, event. I hope she does. I'll get one. I'll buy one and ship it to her. But she seems to be the voice that we are asking for. So please, guys, get behind Dr. Annie Andrews for all the right reasons. I want to thank my man Henry for keeping us on the rails today and always making sure that our show is moving forward. Thanks to all you guys. Thanks to Dan Summons from Blessings in a Backpack, the managing director, Darren Smith, for being with us from Heiko Companies. We appreciate their support of the organization of Blessings and get involved with them as well. And it was great to have the interview that we put together with Rachel Bitecofer. So thanks to you guys. As always, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
WCPT Replay.
We are blessed to have one of the most prolific writers and storytellers and authors in the country right now, and that's Michelle Duster.
When people try to say, well, they want to make America great again, I mean, it's code language for making it white again. But this country has never been a white country. People want to act like there were no indigenous people here. They were in the majority when, the Europeans discovered this country. And then after millions